Picture this: suburbia. Imagine a place where the lawns are greener than a chia pet on steroids, where the houses are practically identical, except for maybe the color of the shutters. Yeah, we're talking suburbia, baby. This is the backdrop for our tale of two moms, best friends, soulmates. Well, at least until recently. Think manicured hedges, two-car garages, and enough Tupperware to survive the apocalypse. Got the picture? Good. Because things are about to get messy. Now, in this land of minivans and bake sales, life usually moves at the speed of a grocery store checkout line on a Sunday afternoon. But every now and then, a scandal explodes like a dropped casserole dish at a potluck. And trust me, this is one for the ages. It's got all the ingredients: betrayal, lust, and enough passive-aggressive jabs to fill a Pinterest board. So buckle up, Buttercup, because we're diving headfirst into a story that's juicier than a gossip rag at the hair salon. First up, let's meet Suzanne. Picture a woman who can sniff out a sale at the Pottery Barn from a mile away. Her house? A shrine to shades of beige and tasteful throw pillows. Suzanne's life was all about order. She had her routine down pat: yoga on Tuesdays, book club on Thursdays, and judging the neighborhood kids' Halloween costumes with the precision of a Supreme Court justice. Her pride and joy? Her son Arthur. He was her little angel, even if he did spend most of his time glued to video games in the basement. Suzanne had big dreams for Arthur: Harvard, Wall Street, maybe even president one day, though she'd settle for a nice girl who could bake a mean lasagna. Little did she know, her perfectly orchestrated world was about to be rocked harder than a heavy metal concert at the local community center. Now, on to Lucy. If Suzanne was vanilla, then Lucy was a triple chocolate fudge brownie with extra sprinkles. She was the life of the party, the one who could turn a trip to the grocery store into a social event. While Suzanne favored sensible cardigans, Lucy rocked skinny jeans and a wardrobe that screamed, "I haven't given up on life after 40." She was always up for a good time, whether it was a wine-tasting fundraiser or a night out dancing on tables, sometimes both. Some might say Lucy was a bit of a free spirit, but she preferred to think of herself as living life on my own terms, thank you very much. What they say about opposites attracting? Totally true for Suzanne and Lucy. They were the Thelma and Louise of the cul-de-sac, minus the Thelma and the car chase, of course. At least, that's what everyone thought. Until Arthur entered the picture. Summer, a time for lemonade, barbecues, and awkward teenage boys returning home from college. Arthur, Suzanne's pride and joy, was back from his freshman year at State. Not Harvard, but Suzanne was still holding on to hope. Gone was the lanky boy with braces, replaced by a man-child with a questionable beard and an even more questionable taste in music. Suzanne naturally was over the moon. She'd spent the past week preparing his favorite meals, lasagna 3 nights in a row, ironing his socks, even though he never wore matching ones, and generally hovering over him like a hummingbird protecting its nest. Arthur, on the other hand, seemed less than thrilled to be back in the beige confines of his childhood home. He spent most of his time locked in his room, emerging only for food and the occasional grunt of acknowledgement. Section 2. Operation Seduction. Phase 1. Casual Acquaintance. Lucy, ever the social butterfly, was the first to welcome Arthur back to the hood. She popped over to Suzanne's house, armed with a plate of her famous double chocolate chip cookies. The secret ingredient? A dash of cayenne pepper for a little kick. Arthur, lured by the promise of sugar and slightly terrified of his mother's relentless enthusiasm, shuffled into the living room.
Well, look at you. My little Arthur's all grown up. College must be agreeing with you.
Arthur mumbled something about ramen noodles and all-nighters, his eyes glued to his phone. Suzanne, oblivious to her son's lack of enthusiasm, beamed at the sight of her two favorite people getting along.
Isn't it wonderful, Arthur? Lucy's so excited to hear all about your classes.
Section 3. Age is just a number. Well, a pretty big one. Over the next few weeks, Lucy made it her mission to bond with Arthur. She'd drop by unexpectedly, often armed with treats. She'd regale him with stories of her wild youth, conveniently omitting any details that might make her seem, well, old. Arthur, starved for human interaction that didn't involve his mother or a textbook, found himself strangely drawn to Lucy's energy. She wasn't like the girls his age, all awkward giggles and Instagram filters. Lucy was different, confident, funny, and surprisingly easy to talk to. He found himself looking forward to her visits, even engaging in actual conversations, a rare occurrence outside of his gaming headset. Suzanne, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of the growing connection between her best friend and her son. She was too busy planning Arthur's future to notice the present unfolding right under her nose. Section 4. The chemistry experiment goes wrong. Very, very wrong. One sweltering afternoon, Lucy invited Arthur over to her place for a swim.
Your mom's driving me crazy with all her nesting.
She'd whispered conspiratorially during one of her cookie drop-offs. Arthur, desperate for an escape from his mother's suffocating attention, readily agreed. Suzanne, thrilled at the idea of Arthur socializing and secretly hoping Lucy might set him up with her niece, practically pushed him out the door. Big mistake. Big, huge mistake. As Arthur awkwardly adjusted his swim trunks, Suzanne insisted on buying him the kind that went down to his knees. Lucy emerged from the house wearing a bikini that could only be described as age inappropriate. It was at that moment, with the sun beating down and the smell of chlorine heavy in the air, that the line between friendship and something far more inappropriate blurred. The air crackled with a tension neither Lucy nor Arthur could ignore.
You missed a spot.
Lucy, perhaps emboldened by the sunshine, or maybe just one too many margaritas from the night before, leaned in close to Arthur under the pretense of applying sunscreen. Her voice was a husky whisper against his ear.
Thanks?
Arthur, his skin suddenly several degrees hotter, stammered. He tried to back away, but Lucy's hand lingered on his arm, her touch electric. They both knew it was wrong. Arthur, barely old enough to buy lottery tickets, felt a wave of guilt wash over him, quickly followed by a surge of something else entirely. Lucy, old enough to know better, much better, told herself it was harmless, just a bit of fun. But deep down, a treacherous voice whispered,
He's cute, and he's definitely not complaining.
What started as an innocent dip in the pool quickly escalated into a full-blown and highly inappropriate summer fling. They snuck around like teenagers, their days filled with stolen kisses in the aisles of the local supermarket and late-night rendezvous at the town's only and decidedly seedy motel. Arthur, usually more comfortable battling virtual monsters than real-life emotions, found himself swept up in the whirlwind of Lucy's attention.
She made him feel alive, dangerous, like he was finally breaking free from the beige shackles of his sheltered existence.
Lucy, for her part, reveled in the thrill of the forbidden. Arthur was young, energetic, and surprisingly attentive, a welcome change from her usual rotation of commitment-phobic bachelors. She justified her actions by telling herself it was just a fling, a temporary escape from the monotony of suburban life. But as the summer wore on, the lines between fantasy and reality began to blur. Their clandestine affair became the talk of the neighborhood squirrels long before it reached human ears. Suzanne, oblivious as ever, remained none the wiser. She was too busy planning Arthur's future to notice the present unfolding right under her meticulously decorated nose. She chalked up Arthur's newfound energy to the joys of being home, his frequent disappearances to hanging out with friends. Never mind that he hadn't had any real friends since the unfortunate incident involving a rogue hamster and a tuba recital in the 6th grade. Lucy, meanwhile, started incorporating increasingly obvious and frankly alarming double entendres into her conversations with Suzanne. What once were innocent comments about the weather,
It's hot enough to melt asphalt out there.
now carried a suggestive undertone.
I swear it's so hot my clothes are practically melting off me.
Suzanne, bless her heart, remained completely oblivious, attributing Lucy's suggestive comments to her flamboyant personality and the too many glasses of Chardonnay she'd witnessed her consume at the last neighborhood potluck. Now you might be wondering, how on earth did Suzanne not know what was happening right under her own roof? Well, Suzanne, despite her many talents, baking a mean lasagna, color-coordinating throw pillows, had one major blind spot. She was hopelessly, hilariously, tragically naive. She saw the world through rose-colored reading glasses, choosing to focus on the positive and conveniently ignoring anything that contradicted her perfectly curated reality. She truly believed Arthur was upstairs studying for the MCATs, he wasn't, and that Lucy's frequent visits were purely out of the goodness of her heart, they weren't. She was too busy organizing her spice rack in alphabetical order and clipping coupons for discounted herbal tea to even consider the possibility that her best friend and her son were engaging in activities that would make even the most liberal PTA mom blush. The signs were all there, of course. The lipstick stains on Arthur's collar that miraculously appeared after Lucy's visits, the faint scent of her signature perfume, vanilla and a hint of danger clinging to his clothes. The way they both seemed to tense up whenever she entered the room, their conversations abruptly ending like a soap opera interrupted by a breaking news bulletin. But Suzanne, bless her cotton socks and sensible shoes, remained blissfully unaware. She was like a detective at a crime scene who somehow managed to miss the giant neon sign flashing, "Murder happened here." It was a Tuesday, and you know what that meant for Suzanne Yoga with Brenda. Brenda, with her Lululemon wardrobe and aggressively positive outlook on life, was Suzanne's only true confidant, besides her hairdresser Marie, who knew everything about everyone. "Downward dog, ladies, downward dog," chirped their instructor, a perky woman named Harmony, who looked suspiciously like she'd never experienced a stressful day in her life. Suzanne, her mind far from downward dogs and mindful breathing, was distracted. Arthur's behavior had been off lately. He was secretive, edgy, and he'd developed a newfound appreciation for air freshener, specifically the vanilla and musk variety that Lucy favored. And then there was the incident with the laundry. Suzanne, ever the dutiful mother, had gone to gather Arthur's dirty clothes and found herself staring at a garment so scandalous it could have single-handedly shut down a Victoria's Secret fashion show. "Brenda," she whispered, her voice trembling, "have you ever seen anything like this before?" Panic at the Pottery Barn. Brenda, ever the pragmatist, took one look at the offending garment, a lacy black thong with the word "juicy" bedazzled on the front, and promptly choked on her herbal tea. "Brenda, Suzanne," she gasped, "where on earth did you find that?" Suzanne, her face now the same shade as Brenda's beetroot smoothie, recounted the laundry incident in hushed, horrified tones. A terrifying thought began to form in her mind, a thought so outrageous, so unthinkable, it seemed impossible. "Suzanne, you don't think—" She trailed off, her voice a strangled whisper. Brenda, despite her usually sunny disposition, was nothing if not perceptive. "Brenda, oh honey," she said, placing a comforting hand on Suzanne's arm. "I think you need to sit down." They were at the Pottery Barn now, surrounded by tasteful throw pillows and scented candles, but even the calming atmosphere couldn't quell the storm brewing inside Suzanne. "Suzanne, it can't be her," she muttered, clutching a ceramic pumpkin as if it were a life preserver. "Lucy wouldn't. She wouldn't." Suzanne, lost in a haze of disbelief and rising fury, barely registered Brenda's words. Her gaze, drawn by some unseen force, landed on a familiar figure browsing the sale aisle. Lucy, and standing next to her, holding a set of matching bathrobes, one pink, one decidedly more masculine, was none other than Arthur. Suzanne saw red. Or maybe it was just the reflection of the oversized sale sign glowing ominously above Lucy's head. She marched toward them, her sensible shoes pounding the polished concrete floor like an angry metronome. Brenda, sensing an impending meltdown of epic proportions, trailed behind, grabbing a discounted throw blanket on the way. You never knew when you might need to mop up spilled Chardonnay. Lucy, startled by the sound of her name and the look of pure fury on Suzanne's face, fumbled the bathrobes, sending them tumbling to the floor. Arthur, caught red-handed, or perhaps pink bathrobed, turned a delightful shade of puce. "Lucy, Suzanne," Lucy stammered, her usual composure cracking like a poorly applied face mask. "What a surprise. Fancy seeing you here. Suzanne, don't you fancy seeing me here, me?" Suzanne hissed, her voice laced with a fury that could curdle milk. You, homewrecker!" She gestured wildly at Arthur, who looked like he'd rather be facing a horde of zombies than his mother's wrath. "And you!" She whirled on her son, her voice reaching a fever pitch. "Get out of my cart and get out of my life!" The Pottery Barn, usually a haven of tranquility and overpriced scented candles, had transformed into a battleground.
Fueled by a potent cocktail of betrayal and discounted herbal tea, stood nose to nose with Lucy, her fury radiating like a microwave on high.
Shoppers, their carefully curated lives momentarily disrupted by the unfolding drama, paused mid-browse, pretending to examine throw pillows and decorative gourds, while stealthily capturing the action on their smartphones.
Ladies, can't we discuss this like civilized adults?
Civilized? You call this civilized? She's sleeping with my son. My son. He's practically still in diapers.
Lucy, never one to back down from a confrontation, especially when she was wearing a killer pair of shoes, crossed her arms and arched an eyebrow.
Okay, first of all, he's 20, and second, he's not your property, Suzanne. He's a grown man who can make his own decisions.
He's a boy who still calls me when he has a tummy ache. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Lucy rolled her eyes.
Oh, please, he knows exactly what he's doing. And for the record, he seems to be enjoying himself quite a bit. Leaned in close to Suzanne, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. He's like a fine wine, Suzanne. A little rough around the edges, but give him a few years.
Section 3. Tears, Tantrums, and Throw Pillows. Before Lucy could complete her analogy, and possibly incite a full-blown riot, Suzanne grabbed the nearest throwable object, a plush faux fur throw pillow shaped like a sheep, and hurled it with surprising accuracy. The pillow caught Lucy squarely in the face, momentarily silencing her. A collective gasp rippled through the stunned audience. Brenda winced. This was not how she envisioned her Tuesday afternoon unfolding. Arthur, his face now an interesting shade of chartreuse, attempted to melt into the display of discounted patio furniture. The silence that followed was shattered only by the faint strains of Enya playing softly over the store's sound system, a stark contrast to the emotional hurricane raging in aisle 4. Tears welled up in Suzanne's eyes, a mixture of anger, betrayal, and the crushing realization that her son had probably never appreciated her matching Tupperware containers. "How could you?" she choked out, her voice thick with emotion. "We were friends, best friends. We shared everything, our deepest secrets, our favorite recipes, our Netflix passwords."
Suzanne, I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt you.
Lucy, momentarily stunned by the projectile pillow attack, recovered her composure with impressive speed. Years of navigating awkward social situations had honed her reflexes.
Don't you sorry me. You betrayed me. You stole my best friend and my son in one fell swoop. I hope you both get matching monogram towels for Christmas because you're never stepping foot in my house again. And you're sleeping on the sofa until you're 30.
Weeks turned into months. Suzanne redecorated her living room, trading beige for teal. Arthur moved into a studio apartment above a bowling alley. One rainy Thursday, Lucy showed up at Suzanne's door with a peace offering. Suzanne, initially hesitant, invited her in. They ended up at the local karaoke bar, belting out, "Girls just want to have fun." The road to forgiveness was long, but eventually, the two friends found their way back to each other. Their friendship, despite detours, was too precious to abandon. Who else would appreciate Suzanne's gourds, or Lucy's knack for free samples? Life in suburbia returned to its regularly scheduled programming. Lawns were mowed, casseroles exchanged, and gossip flowed. Arthur found solace in Bethany, who made a mean lasagna. And the lacy black thong? That's a story for another time. Just another day in suburban bliss.